Seems we are live now. Yes, Jeremiah, we're live. Welcome,
Yes.
everyone. Thank you, Jeremiah. Welcome, everyone. This week's topic is religious conflict, source and solution. We are here online with two beautiful speakers with Mr. Nabil and Ms. Azadeh. I'm going to give an introduction in a moment just to welcome all of you. This is Clearwater Baha'is, clearwaterbaha'is.org. You can access all of our Zoom sessions. If you're now seeing this and you don't see the way to join, just go to clearwaterbaha'is.org, scroll down, and you can see we have different buttons for Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube, all of which you can use to access either our Zoom or the live stream as it's going right now. So our topic, religious conflict, source, and solution. Following the coming of the latest manifestation of God, extraordinary progress occurred worldwide. His teachings reached the roots of human motivation. His teachings awakened the whole population's capacities to contribute to the advancement of civilization to an extent never before possible. They also inspire breathtaking achievements in all fields of human endeavor and elicit extraordinary qualities of heroism, self-sacrifice, and self-discipline from his followers. The teachings bring on universal codes of law, and institutional systems are created that bind people together in ever larger and more complex societies. Thus, as the driving force of the civilizing process and the primary agent of human development, religion has the power both to nurture moral character and profoundly influence social relationships. With that said, our two presenters today, we have Mr. Nabil Fares. He works as an executive consultant supporting the public and private sectors, including the federal, state, and local governments in technology management. Nabil published various technical articles and taught university-level classes in executive leadership, technology management, and advanced databases design and management, cloud computing strategies and implementation, among other domains. Nabil and his wife, Azadeh, authored and published several papers related to the Baha'i faith and various studies and papers as related to the faith and comparative religions with a focus on Islam and Islamic domains. They've contributed to Irfan Colloquium, and also there's quite a few I can expose you guys that are listed on clearwaterbaha'is.org for their biography, but I'll say a few of them. We have their involvement in the Bosch, Santa Cruz, Llewellyn, Flint, Michigan Baha'i schools, where they ascertain the validity of Islamic hadiths. They have also a personal perspective on the Kitab-i-Aqdas, commentaries, notes, and study sessions, Gems of Divine Mysteries, commentary notes and study sessions on the Kitab-i-Iran. Further, likewise, they have on the Ministry of the Bab, Advent of Divine Justice, the Enigma of Divinity. They've also studied the Tablet of Ahmad with wonderful people that are willing to join and learn more about that. We also have the Will and Testament of Baha'u'llah, the Kitab Ad, that is called Ahdi as well, they call it. There's the Will and Testament of Abdul Baha, and of course, they are facilitators of the complete series of the Ruhi books. And also, as it relates to Miss Azadeh Mohandesi Fares, she works as an executive consultant supporting the private and public sectors, and this includes federal, state, and local governments in technology management. So in her public sector career, Azadeh managed the implementation of major federal programs for the state of California. Azadeh, with her husband Nabil, have authored and published several papers related to the Baha'i faith. And of course, that includes what I just listed with Mr. Fares, but I'll highlight again that she's focused on Islam and Islamic domains as a contributor to the Irfan Colloquium, The Irfan Colloquium is an amazing resource. It's spelled IRFAN. Irfan Colloquium, IRFAN. You can find this online because Irfan, there's so many scholars that contribute to this. And these wonderful people here are one of them. And you can see so many mind-opening subjects where they come with quite a bit of evidence, quite a bit of nice resources and citations. So you can too understand where they are in their journey, understanding more about our religion. That being said, Miss Mohandesi Fares has also contributed towards, again, providing beautiful personal perspectives, commentary notes, and study sessions on the Kitab Aqdas, the Gems of Divine Mysteries, the Kitab Iran, the Ministry of the Bab, Advent Divine Justice, Enigma of Divinity, the Tablet of Ahmad, the Will and Testament of Baha'u'llah, the Will and Testament of Abdul Baha, and further, she also is a facilitator for the complete series of Ruhi books. Having said all this, I want to welcome them again as we talk about this subject, religious conflict, source, and solution. We believe with all the resources they're bringing to talk about this beautiful subject, that we can come out of this learning a thing or two more than where we were. Both of you, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, John, for having us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So moving on and starting this presentation, should we open up PowerPoint right now to view, or you guys have it?
I will in a second. That's okay with you?
Okay. Yes, by all means. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you. I would like first to, before I turn it over to Azada, to welcome the friends from Sacramento, Michael and Serene. Hello, good to see you. And we love seeing you all the time. Thank you for doing this. Sacramento rocks, however, it's 107 degrees. So it is kind of, it's a very hot while it's rocking. So, before I turn over to Azada, with your permission, my new friend John and I were talking a little bit about religion, and some of the friends online, and they attend physically firesides or discussion groups, whatever the conglomeration is, whatever the milieu is, and we talk about religion. And I told John, if I weren't a Baha'i and you come today and talk to me about religion, I will tell you, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about religion. The simplest thing that I will tell John, if you have a true God, if you have a true religion, what's in God's green earth is truly happening all over the world. Misery, difficulty, hunger, no social justice, economic problems, and the list ends. And I will tell John, well, John, if your God exists, which I believe he exists in your mind, in your heart and your soul, why is he not doing anything about this? What's his plan? So of course, John is going to tell me, well, in my writings, Shawi Effendi, the guardian of the faith, said that the present is going to be miserable. The future will be much better. The present will be catastrophic. Tomorrow will be better. So this is very interesting because I feel personally, and before I go into this, if you have a question, please feel free to interrupt, whether raise your hand or put something in the chat or say hello, something like that, and we will answer. Or most of the time I say, very good question. Azada, you can take this one because it's difficult. So I'll give the difficult questions for Azada, and I can handle the simple ones. So, I believe that religion is a powerful tool. Powerful tool because religion shapes the human heart, soul, mind, psychology, mode, it shapes everything in my life. I think of religion that is a powerful multivitamin shot in the veins of humanity with all the daily portions. So we get these pills from Costco or from whatever, and it's multivitamin, one for men, one for women, and it has vitamin C, A, B, C, D, and B12 and B13 and B complex and all of this. And I take one, and then the doctor said, this is really good, take some fish oil and sit in the sun to get to work on your tan a little bit. You will get natural vitamin D. I tell him, well, I am already tanned. He said, okay, get a little bit more. You know, I said, okay, that's a vitamin shot. Religion is a vitamin shot in the arm of humanity. When you get a vitamin shot, your body reacts in a certain way. First thing, you have to get rid of the toxics in your body as humanity. So the vitamin that you are taking through religion, do some sort of cleansing. If you continue taking it and you eat healthy and you get this vitamin, you go through a detox first, and then your body starts benefiting from the vitamin. Now, this vitamin, when the detox happens, religion and its teachings inspire amazing things, breathtaking achievements in all the fields of human endeavor, everything we do. But the detox has to happen first. But we know that religion provokes into our hearts and souls and mind extraordinary qualities, heroism. John, you were talking about the Dawnbreaker a minute ago. We were talking about Abdul Baha and his life. We were talking about the Bab. It's self-sacrifice. Look at all these martyrs that willingly gave their heart and mind and sacrificed everything, including their hopes, for the cause, and gave up their life. And religion provokes self-discipline. So the religion becomes a driving force. I think of it like the locomotive, you know, this train of the human development. Religion has the power both to nurture moral character and profoundly influence social relationships. And if you have any comments, please raise your hand. Now for the next part, because it's more involved, I turn over to my beloved wife. Thank you. I will go on mute. Azadeh, you want me to put the PowerPoint?
Would you please? Thank you.
Coming right up.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Good morning.
Good morning. You know, I will just pick up on the topic of what does really religion do for us, which Nabil explained. And in this presentation, it just came to my mind, it's also interesting to view our free will in addition to whatever religion we believe or we don't believe in it. So I want to keep that in the back of my mind, that just because we believe in a religion or in the existence of God, it doesn't mean that we don't believe in free will. And then what's important is how we make those two work together. But that will be for a later discussion. Do you want to go to the next? Okay, thank you. So this morning we will together look at what religion has done in terms of not just civilization, but religious wars. How did humanity come about having, all through its history, religious wars in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam? Nabil would walk us through the evolution of jihad and the purpose of religion. And then we will look at what is the solution to all of this. Thank you. Next, Nabil. Okay. There is probably many of you have came across this saying or this sentence here that we have, the phrase, when the followers of one faith take to the extreme and force their religious views on those of other faiths, religious conflicts emerge. So this is one piece that we will really today dive into, and how this happens, and how we basically inject our will and our prejudices and our own plans into what needs to really be done in terms of religious progress and humanity, helping humanity along the way. Next one. Looking, we went and we started looking, going back centuries to the beginnings of the religion and across the globe, and what were the wars that happened, humanity. And really, the war specifically is, in my humble opinion, is where we interfere in what the holy books of various religions during the successive and progressive religious beliefs have let our own ego, our own plans, our own hopes, whatever you want to call it, interfere with the destiny of humanity. We look at Africa, and I'm sure you are all well aware of this. And we went back quite a bit here. Can you enlarge this a little bit, Nebuja? Or no, let me do it on my screen. Sorry, my apology. There we go. We looked at it across the continent of Africa, and some of these has happened in our war. What has happened in Sudan, what has happened in Syria, Northern Africa, and not just the African tribes and countries within themselves, but the forces from outside, the European armies who came and just took over many of the countries in Africa, and then the African countries themselves. You remember probably going back and looking at the Tutsi and Hutu wars, which I believe, if I remember correctly, 2 million people were killed. It was a genocide, basically. And there are other famous wars that happened in Africa. And many of these, you will see that in Africa, if you look at it, you will see, how did Christianity spread in Africa? It was through war. It was through the European countries coming through and converting the people to Christianity. And the same with Islam. The military crossing and coming into Northern Africa and going down further and conquering countries and enforcing the teachings of Islam on them. Next continent would be after Africa, as we looked, is the Americas. And when, of course, Americas includes North, South, and all of the North and Southern continents of America. I was looking at the Inca emperor. Basically, it was an emperor and Aztec also, and the forces of European countries coming in. And you look at Latin America and you see that they're all majority Christian countries. So Christianity came through the governments that at that time, Spain and Portugal, it conquered the countries and enforced their religion on whatever the tribes and the governments of that time believed in. It's also, I don't want to get to the details of these wars when they came in and conquered these two Aztec and the Inca emperors, what happened to the people between the diseases that came and the killings and so on and so forth. Again, just having spread Christianity. And one other one, going from the Americas, we keep going into the other, next one, Neville John, please. Into Asia. in Asia, we can see that parts of the wars that you would see happen, especially in the Middle East, was the spread of Islam coming in. And so we're not just looking at the civil wars or just the religious wars. The civil wars you're pretty much familiar with, but the religious wars I'm sure you're also familiar with. The spread of Islam from Saudi Arabia into Iran. I can speak for Iran at least. This is what we study in school when we're living there, on how Islam came to Iran. And Iran was an country that spread far to India and up through, at some point, up till near getting very close to Greece. But what happened is that the Islamic forces came through. The country of Iran at that time was they had the Zoroastrian as their religion. But Islam spread not only through Iran, they went up later in centuries, much later, up into parts of Europe. You will see when you study the history of Islam and its expansion, all of it in the name of religion and converting people. And as I go over these things, when Nabu starts talking, we will see that how in the name of religion and enforcing our beliefs, we conquered and went through all of this unfortunate situations. Next one, Nabuja. And Europe, of course, I just touched upon it, is no exception, both in terms of civil wars and religious wars. As I was looking at it, what came to my mind was Northern Ireland. You know, well, I'm of a generation that lived through the hearing on news all the time what happened in Northern Ireland, and finally in the 20th century reaching peace. And again, it was, as you know, within Christianity, between the Catholics' belief and Protestants, that it divided Ireland. Other aspects in all of these wars, not just in Europe, and I just picked the Northern Ireland because it's so close to our time, and our generation having been exposed to it one way or another, is that this brings it really for us to contemplate on what were the underlying forces that initiated these wars across centuries, going back till probably before we even had written history. How did all this happen, and why was it initiated? And we had right before this the interesting conversation about if we believe in God, then everything is the will of God. How is it then that he would want this for us? But just to close down this section of it, not right now, I'm not going to get into how does the will of God and how do our choices, where do we have free will and where we don't, comes into play. Where does our ego step in, shaping not just our own destiny and choices that we make, how important they become, but those of others, which is a topic for a different session probably. Next one, Nabil Shah. Thank you. Now here, I would really look forward to having you in this morning that we're spending together to let us know, where do you think the three prophetic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, stand concerning the repressive violence and war that we all just touched upon briefly, really. It's quite a bit of history to get into, which this was not the place for it. But I thought, Nabil and I thought that this opens the door to get into thinking and right now sharing with each other what was their role in these wars and conflicts that was initiated through religion. Please.
This is when I say not all of you at the same time, please.
So I have a question from, I'm sorry, I lost my question. Sorry, Nabil.
Before we go to the question, can we just try to answer the question that Azada put out? Let me put it again. So all of us were having this dialogue. What do you think the role of these religions, three religions in particular, concerning repressive violence and war? We saw quite a few charts showing how the history.
Could we keep up that question if you don't mind, just so people can reflect on it?
Thank you.
Thank you. So feel free to raise your hand, everyone in the audience. There is a, I think, answer with a question in our Zoom chat here.
You want to read it for us?
Sure. So Serene asks the question, which is a response to this question: how is clergy responsible in conflict?
So there is a field that clergy play a role, whether they are priests or rabbis or mullah or whatever their title is, that they could or they are playing a role in creating these conflicts. Okay, we will talk about this also. So, but that's an excellent point. Is one religion more aggressive than others? Okay, that's a good question. So there is a question in the chat from our dear friend Serene asking if one of these three religions are more aggressive than others. What do you think? What's your feel?
So I could respond saying that no religion is particularly more aggressive than the other, but of course, saying this, people who have the opinion otherwise may come up and say, look, their adherents did X, Y, Z. And my response to that is that just because the adherents of a religion have committed an act, it doesn't mean that it was in line with the teachings of that religion. But my question now is, what if someone were to say, well, look at the teachings of this religion, it doesn't look peaceful to me. What do you say to that?
Okay, so what we are saying, John, that part of this repressive violence could be the teachings of a certain religion, right?
Yes, and ultimately, what would the response to that be? As
okay,
I don't have one.
Sure, hold this question for a couple of minutes. We'll address it also. Okay, any other thoughts? Okay, we'll continue. And if you think of anything, please shoot our way, you know? Azada, still yours, right?
Yes, it is. This Nabil inserted his Egyptian background for this slide. Violence in religious history. Okay.
Is it showing?
Yes, it is. Please go to the next one.
Sorry. Is it showing?
Yes, it is. So we're looking at, as the slide says, at religious wars over the history that we have. And as I was looking through this in Yahweh's Holy War, which is the wars that happened under the Old Testament in the name of Yahweh, which is God in the Hebrew language. And I'm just translating it very briefly, the word Yahweh, not getting into the origins of it or anything like that. You know that the Old Testament, I was doing a little bit of refreshing my memory about this, and was written over hundreds of years going back. So imagine if something is written, if you are doing a science research, you don't go back and do whatever was said during hundreds of years, thousands of years now. It's past from when these were gathered, and make that your holy grail. You know, it evolves and progresses in the scientific field. Some principles stay fixed, but some progress. When we look at this, at the Yahweh's Holy Wars and at the books of the Old Testament, we will see quite a few examples of how it worked thousands of years ago. Would you go next slide, please, Abuja? And when we read the Old Testament, I'm sure you have, I read it many years ago, you will see the violence that is depicted in the Old Testament. Look at the, gosh, my Persian is kicking in, Habil and Qabil, Abe and Cain, brothers, from, you know, the conflict between the brothers and the one killing the other one. And going on into the wars that happened in the name of religion and Yahweh. And some of them, the pictures of pillages and the killings is very, very graphic, and how these happened, the conquering cities and what went through as they conquered the cities in the Old Testament, the book of Joshua, and and many of the other books on how this violence perpetuated itself as they conquered different parts of the land. Next one, Abul-Jan. This is just a visual, really, of depicting some of the atrocities that happened during a religious war. I don't remember which one was this. I have to look at
I think I put the notes at the bottom if you want to.
Yes, I'm looking at it, to the prophecies of Micah and Isaiah's violence. The end of time, it depicts the end of time, basically, which swords turn into plowshares, and a manifesto for today's peace movement, that phrase, including the peace movement that happened in Israel in the 20th century between Palestine and the government of Israel there. But this is just a visual of how this violence would turn into peace. Would you go to the next one, please? One of the famous ones of the prophets of the Old Testament is Elijah. And he is well known among the scholars, biblical scholars, and who had championed the religion of Yahweh. And he even proceeded, and that's the visual of it, in killing the prophets of Baal. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this in English correct, so somebody correct me, of Asherah. In his,
It
as
sounds
he,
correct. Asherah.
Asherah.
Aschera, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, it's Asherah, probably.
Okay, thank you. And spreading the religion. And I don't want to get into right now, this is not the place, on how the interpretation of the holy writings of various religions, in which included the egos of some of the personalities along the way, played a role in expanding war in the terms of means of spreading the religion, whatever religion it was that they believed in. And Elijah was one of those prophets that used this tool, the war, of spreading the religion that he spearheaded. Next one, Nabil John, please. The next is of the major religions that we looked at was the violence under the cross, which Christ gave up his life on for what he believed in being the manifestation of God, and how that Christianity waged a holy war in the Middle Ages, and how the Orthodox churches of the East were also involved in political military conflicts across the continent of Asia, and then later on, of course, in Northern Africa. Well, some of the famous wars that you know are the Crusades, which we will get into later, because that happens after Islam steps into the picture, and holy wars that happen. And these wars, the wars of Christianity, were all ways to convert the heathen and spread the gospel and combat heresy, while the Crusades took place as a complete reversal of the meaning of the cross, really. And we know that these wars happened at the initiation by the popes at different times, at the popes that wanted to use these wars to spread. And what was, I'm going to put in a very personal note here. A few years ago, we went to Rome on a trip and went to Vatican, of course. And as I was walking, just entering and then walking through the halls there, from arts, all sorts of art pieces and wealth, you see that how these came to be there. One of them, of course, is the contributions of the believers over the centuries. But the other means of accumulating all that, it all just hit me that was the wars that was carried out in the name of Christ. And then in that same building, when we went to the Vatican, you have the statue that Michelangelo made of Mary and Christ when she had her son on her lap, and the statue that's called, is it called Pieta? Am I saying that correct? I don't know. Which really brings you to tears, and you see the contradiction between the spirit of that faith, Christianity, what Christ had brought to humanity, and how we misuse it, looking around to the rest of it. That was just on a very personal note, just my experience to see that what we did as humans with the teachings of Christ. The Crusades, the wars that were carried under the name of Christ, of course, spread through Europe and also to the Middle East. In the war, as I said earlier, with the Islamic forces and the atrocities that happened on both sides, Christianity and the Islamic forces. And Christianity also, please, we have to keep in mind, it was, crusade was not just done under the sword. It was also, you know, we live in North America. We look at the continent of Latin America, all Christian. Here, when we came from England, those who arrived in our interaction with the Native Americans that had lived here, and how in the name of teaching them Christianity, what we did to the Native Americans here and in Canada, both. So the Crusades continued with different method. It was not with sword now, but in a different way. When we look at this, this is where I close at the next slide. If you don't mind, I will read it. And look at, Nabil and I looked at it, and he brought it to my attention. The Sermon on the Mount, which Christ did to his followers, Jesus of Nazareth, and how we put that in perspective now when we look at what humanity did with the teachings of Christ. In seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye, when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt should have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Thank you.
Thank you, Azad.
Of course.
Dear ones, do you have any questions, any comments? There are some beautiful comments on the chat. Like one of them reads, I think each religion has gone through periods of aggression, you know, which is probably very true. You know, as we go far away from the source, which is the prophet of God, as the time lapses, as the time goes away, things become a little bit hazy. Things become a little bit not clear, not crisp. And we go through some of our things. So we go down and we go up. And when we go down, then becomes source of aggression, as Azada pointed out. And also Azada pointed out and closed with the Sermon of the Mount, because it's amazing dichotomy between the practice that she shared with us that we saw over history and the core, the heart of the teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ. Now we are going to talk a little bit about the holy wars in Islam. We covered Jewish faith, we covered Christianity, Now we are going to talk a little bit about the third religion that we focus on, which is the holy wars of Muslims. To answer the question you put out there, John, early on, about if there are some religions has more aggressive teaching, so to speak. Aggressive, this is my word. I think he used a beautiful word. I don't remember it. I want to share with you that one clear thing from the start, that the followers of Christ, according to the heart of their teaching, the core of their teaching is nonviolence. And we just read the Sermon on the Mount. This is how Jesus Christ lived his life, taught, and gave up his life. Nonviolence. While the followers of the Prophet Muhammad in Islam are obliged from the outset to engage, if necessary, in militant dispute, which does not stop short at violence. Some of the traditions of Islam says, it reads, if you see something ungodly, if you see something wrong, if you see something which is not praiseworthy, you change it by your hand. If you can't, by your mouth, utterance, say something, or through your heart, and this is the weakest faith. And I don't want to be weak in my faith. I want to do something about it. So I want to talk about it. I want to change it with my hand, force the issues and say, this is wrong. When you reflected about the life of the Prophet Muhammad, when he was having a treaty with the people of Mecca, and the people of Mecca at this time was mainly Jewish faith and Christian faith, when he conquered and opened Mecca to the Islam, he evidenced his willingness to fight and to win because he was there with his army. But also, he did not negate that he's willing to go into a peace and protect those that they are supposed to be protected by Islam, which is the people of the book, the understanding of the term people of the book. And the people of the book in Islam, it means the previous religions before Islam, hence it is the Christianity and Jewish faith. Basically, that's it, not other religions. Let's talk a little bit about the jihad. We hear this term since 9/11 and before 9/11, and the atrocity which is happening and the ugliness which is happening. The jihad we know is actually in Arabic, and this is my language, I'm from Egypt. It means to exert yourself, to strive to do better in your relationship with God. This is really the meaning of jihad in the Quran, that you have to fight your ego to become selfless in knowing God and loving God. From there, it moved to a secular dimension. It became jihad to do a good job. So when I go to the school, I have to do jihad in my homework. I have to do jihad in my assignment. I have to study hard. I have to memorize. I have to learn. And this is jihad, which is exert myself. We took it to another dimension to corporate work. I have to work hard. I have to exert. So my job, I do the best in my job to be able to do the best thing and to shine in my job and do the right thing. From there, things changed a little bit with the advent of 20th century. The fundamental Islamic movement started to change the meaning of the jihad and give it another dimension, political dimension. We said now the jihad should be against everything, against the teachings of Islam. For instance, when the Mughal became Muslims, the Muslims at a point of time say the Mughals, they don't follow the Sharia. And the Sharia in Islam is the theology, the book of laws, and there are four main sects in Islam talking about the Sharia. And the one which is very orthodox and very rigid is following the school of Ibn Hanbal. one of the four. And this is the school in Saudi Arabia and in these areas in which Islam, there is very fundamental and the interpretation is very fundamental. And now we have a lot of interpretation of the sacred writings of the Quran and the traditions of Muhammad. And we started to add dimension after dimension to the meaning of the Quran and the meaning of the traditions, what the Prophet Muhammad is saying. Hence, the jihad started to take a new movement, new dimension, new understanding, and this includes any person against Islam or speaks about anything ill of Islam or counter my understanding of Islam, then you are a heretic. Hence, it goes jihad, which now, per total amount of killing and harassing and bombing, it goes against the writers, the journalists, the free speech people, and things of this nature. So now the movement started to become very orthodox because of the interpretation of the theologian and allowing, getting the ceiling up. Now you can do more. So it's no longer you are fighting against yourself to be a better person. Now you are fighting against yourself to be a better society. Now you are fighting against yourself or against the society to expand and spread the good according to your understanding of the holy text of your religion, which is, we saw this in the Old Testament, we saw this in the New Testament, and we saw this interpretation also in Islam. The disquieting fact for me, the scary part for me, the concerning part for me, that this Orthodox movement is gaining a lot of support. More and more schools of thought interpreting the sacred writings of their faith, whether it's Jewish faith, Christian faith, and Islamic faith, and taking it to a political level, economic level, and mixing things together, in which the people get gravitated towards the lofty mottos which are put by these people. We are going to free our country. We are going to free our land. We are against, who are the people against Muslim or against Christians or against Jewish faith. So now the movement, particularly in Islam, became very militant, and you are aware of many sects. Not all of them, of course, not all of them. I'm talking about the fundamental sects, the fundamental movement in which they interpret the holy sacred writing in a way which suits their political aspiration. So for us to understand this, we have to look at it in a historical context. So the wars of Yahweh, we need to understand this in the historical context. The Christian also wars, we need to understand this in the historical context. In the Quran, also the wars has to be understood in the historical context. And we have tons of books written about this, and we did touch upon it a little bit. So there is always a relationship between the content and the context. So we cannot say the Jewish faith is bad because we need to understand that there is a relationship between the content and the context to understand the faith is not bad at all. In its purest essence, it's beautiful. Christian, we just read the teaching of Jesus Christ. In its purest essence, it's beautiful. When you read about the teachings of Islam, in its purest essence, it is beautiful. It's lofty. So what happens? How did we go from what Jesus Christ said to us today, or the crusade? What happened that we went from what Jesus Christ, what Muhammad said, and where we are today? So we need to do some thinking about this and explore what's the factors which really stand there among all these fractions of Orthodox movement. One of them, which is paramount, and I want you to look at this a little bit, that each fraction, each group believes that they have the absolute truth claim. I have the truth, and the others don't have. So for me, the religion is fixed. The interpretation is fixed. The progression is fixed. So now this is my faith and this is my understanding. And it doesn't change. It's correct. And if you don't repeat what I'm saying, if you are not saying what I'm saying, then you are in the erring side. The second thing, out of love to my religion, out of love to my faith, whether I'm a Muslim, Christian, or a Jewish, out of love, I have complete blind obedience to the teachings. However, these teachings that I'm dealing with came to me not through the essence of the sacred writing, it came to me through the rabbi interpretation of the Old Testament, through the priest interpretation of the New Testament, through the Muslim clergy interpretation of the Quran and of the Islamic tradition. And because I love this faith, my faith, I have complete blind obedience. I don't question what the clergy are telling me because they went to school to understand this, and I go to the mosque on Friday and they tell me what does it mean, and they tell me how am I supposed to react, and they tell me how my heart should be filled with complete obedience. All these three religions talks about that the future, the time will be beautiful. So I need, through my teachings as a follower of one of these three religions, make sure that the future, the beautiful future happen. So I do the wars. I do defending my faith. I do support my religion. I do support the absolute truth that I believe in and I have complete obedience to. So I do whatever it takes to expand my faith and make sure the future happens. In doing this, the end, which is spreading my Islam or spreading my Christianity or spreading the Jewish faith, the means justify the fruition. I will get there. Don't ask me how did I get there. Ask me how there looks like. Tell me about the future, how the future will look like. It's beautiful. Don't ask me how did I get there. Don't ask me how many people got sacrificed. Don't ask me how many people or how many principles got compromised or how many wars I did or how many interpretation of the teachings I did put out in the hearts and the minds of the believers to make sure we get there. As a result, the consequences of these four things is holy wars. That whatever I do, I am doing it for the love of my faith. It's a holy war. The jihad does not mean holy war. This was another meaning got added in the 20th century because of the colonization, because of the relationship between Israel and Palestine, because of the relationship in south of Sudan, because of the relationship between Saudi and Yemen. All of this became holy war that caused atrocities that Azad shared with us early on. And this is also because my faith and my blind obedience is rooted in a tradition, in a culture tradition, not really because of my faith. I will stop here and ask you for questions or reactions. Okay, Kathleen, you look like you have a question. Okay, John, you have a question.
Yes, so the question was asked, so you're saying that it's really traditions and not really the religion that we're looking at, that we're defining to be the religion, and therefore these not so attractive teachings that we find.
That's correct. So let me give you an example, okay? So I'm from Egypt. Egypt became Islamic country 14 centuries ago when Islam started to expand and went to Iran and went to Egypt. And of course, Egypt is the core and the impulse of the Middle East. So the Islam took Egypt, and the pharaohs, my country, were weak, and they took over Egypt, and they continue west to Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. They crossed to Spain and Portugal, south of France and Italy, and they expanded to the Baltic. So in Islam today, one of the practices, at least in Egypt and in many other countries, that part of the practice of Islam is when a person dies, they don't touch the body for 3 days, 3 nights, 4 days. So they preserve the body for 3-4 days. And then, I'm sorry, I misrepresented this. They deal with the body and they bury the body at the same day, because we don't have the concept of putting them in the fridges unless there's something complicated with the body. So they bury the body at the same day. The 4th night, the 4th day, we have sessions to read mainly the Quran. This is 4 days later. So the night the person died, they make a session and they read the Quran. 4 days later, they make another session and they read the Quran for the progress of the soul. The 40th day, that's 39 nights, 40 days, they have another session to read the Quran for the progress of the soul and remembering the person who died. Okay, you dig in Islam, there is no such thing at all. So I'll give you a very good example how the culture seeped into Islam and got carried all over the world. In the pharaonic religious beliefs, which is very interesting, that when the person dies, the soul stays there very close to the body for 4 days. And we call it part, like the part in the hair. This is when they believe, the pharaohs, that the soul separates from the body and moves on. Then they start the mummification from day 4 through day 39. And they go through the process of mummification of the body. And the 40th day, they bury the body. So now you see how a tradition coming from the pharaohs now adhered itself, and it became an integral part of the religion. That many practices in Islam, that they read the Quran on the 4th day, which is with the soul parts, and they make another session after 40 days, which pharaonic-wise, it's when the body gets buried. Did I answer you, John? Did I give you an example?
Yes, I think that it's good that you were able to provide these explanations, because definitely there's a lot of idiosyncrasies. You go around the world, there's always something that's very unique to the culture, a tradition that they carry, and they really make it a part of their religion. I mean, you can go to practically any culture around the world and see how the religion is expressed, how it's really affected by the culture of the people. And culture is not bad at all. It's just the traditions that are made a part of the religion in the name of the religion, where if you don't do it, you're a bad person. I think
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
That's when it's crossing the line, when if you don't do it, you're a bad person to not do it.
So, absolutely. Very well said. But what happens, that the essence, the purity of the faith gets colored, gets changed, gets altered. And as Mike put out eloquently, we don't do our homework. We don't do the personal investigation. I don't take it upon myself to really examine what I've been told every Sunday, every Saturday in the synagogue, every Sunday in the church, every Friday in the mosque. I just take it because it's easier for me to hear what the people are telling me to do versus cracking this book open to read my own text. And now I get to know a little bit get added by every clergy, a little bit added by every rabbi, a little bit added by every priest. And now the situation becomes a little bit convoluted. So let's talk a little bit about the solution. So what's the solution for this situation? to talk about solution, something powerful that we talked about, which is religion, in order to alter it, you have another powerful tool. It has to be another religion, very strong, in which to clear the religion and purify it. But in order to do this, we need to understand a little bit, we need to redefine religion. Because if you will talk to me about religion, I will tell you, oh, and we mentioned this early on, religion, it's scaring me. Look what's happening in the name of God, and we create problems in Sudan. In the name of God, we create problems in the Baltic. In the name of God, we create problems everywhere. And I will tell you, this God scares me. So now we have to redefine religion. In the Baha'i holy text, His Holiness Baha'u'llah, he said that the fundamental purpose for the religion is to promote unity and protect humanity and create spirit of love and fellowship. So this is the religion: protection, unity, love, and fellowship. No strife, no fight. Baha'u'llah said, the religion cannot be source of dissension and discord, hate, or enmity. It can be. This is not a religion. And this is what the Baha'i faith is built on. Baha'u'llah told us also that all the religion revealed are are divinely ordained religions. And you can read this. But he said all the religions are coming from the same source. The basic principles are the same. They are in complete harmony. They do not contradict each other. They differ only in social aspects of their doctrines. But their mission represents successive stages in the spiritual evolution of human society. So Baha'u'llah is telling us that's what's happening here, that every prophet is coming is like a lamp of guidance. Every lamp of guidance takes you from one lamp to the other. Everyone takes you a mile. And we follow this lamp of guidance. We follow this mile. We go ahead and follow this lamps of guidance. Moses, or Zoroaster, or Buddha, Christ, the Prophet Muhammad, Baha'u'llah, the Bab. We follow these lamps of guidance. It is continuation. They differ only on non-essential things. I'll give you a strong example. I'll give you a very strong example, you know. The interpretation of in the Old Testament that Abraham is sacrificing his son Isaiah. We know this, right? Okay. This is the understanding that Abraham is sacrificing his son Isaiah. In the Quran, it clearly says that Abraham is sacrificing his son Ishmael. He's sacrificing his son Ishmael. So there is a question here comes, it's who deserves sympathy? Is it the Jewish faith deserves sympathy in this situation? Or is it the Islamic faith? If you will take this to a higher reality, higher level, you will find out that the moral of the story is a father sacrificing his son for the sake of God. It doesn't matter what's the name of the son. What matters is the sacrifice of Abraham, the father of all the prophets. He is sacrificing his son, doesn't matter what's his name, for the sake of God. We lost this argument. We forgot about this. And for the past 5,000 years, that's a very strong contentious part between the Jewish and the Muslims, that my book is saying and yours is wrong, and my book is saying and yours is wrong. So the question about who deserves sympathy, Abraham deserves the sympathy, because this is the higher reality. Would this make sense? Okay, I will go back again to, you have questions so far?
I think at this moment, you kind of answered the question about the sympathy. So I guess we have a question about this concept of objectivity. How can we objectively go and measure this? How can we objectively say that there's an outcome that we want, and here's how we get there, and here's how we know we're getting there? What do we do?
Don't make me forget about this question. Okay? Because this answer is rooted in what Michael said. He said, lack of personal investigation of the truth and allowing blindly leaders of various religion sects that causes holy war and causes problems. The answer is rooted beautifully in the statement that he put. But we will come back again and we'll talk about it. I will ask Mike to help me talking about it, and Azada. So one of the things that Baha'u'llah said, there is never to be allowed foster feelings of animosity among men. He said the diverse communions of the earth and manifold system of religious belief should never be allowed to foster the feelings of animosity among men. Another one that you can read about the principles and laws, they are here coming from one source and come from one light. This is why, and I think Jeremiah and John, if they would be kind enough and approve our request, Azada and I, to talk about Kitabi Aqdas in September, the first 3 weeks, and first 3 sessions in September, His Holiness Baha'u'llah said, this is the eternal faith of God. This is the faith of God. Eternal in the past, eternal in the future. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. No prophet coming saying, kill thy neighbor. No prophet coming saying, steal from your neighbor. The core of the love is really shining more and more as we mature as human beings, not as individuals, as human beings, not as individuals. As we mature as human beings and the love seeps our conscience, you will find that the difference between Christianity and Judaism and Islam and the Baha'i faith is not who eats pork and who doesn't eat pork. Jewish faith, we don't eat pork. Christian, we eat pork. Muslims, we don't eat pork. Baha'i faith, you can eat pork. Now I'm standing there saying, whoa, wait a minute. Do I open the window or close the window? Which one is going to take me to hell? Which one is going to take me to paradise? Because I don't want to go to hell. It doesn't matter who's eating pork. It's a matter about how pure your heart is, how loving you are to humanity. But as we go back again, away from the source of light, the lamp of guidance, these things get forgotten. Hence, God sent us another lamp of guidance to remind us of the essence and beauty of the religion. Baha'u'llah said, as the religion becomes weaker and weaker, things becomes really, really bad. Because we are not getting the vitamin shot in the veins of humanity. We become so arrogant because of science. And I focus just on science. I don't focus on the context. We become very arrogant because of the technology. And look at the technology. We are from all over the world sitting, looking at each other. I'll tell you something, by the way, about technology. So Azada and I, we were invited to the Holy Land in, was it April and May or May and June, Azad? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Oh, April and May, okay.
April and May, yeah.
April and May. So we were invited and we went to the Holy Land and we spent some time there. It's a beautiful place, you know. And one of the things that, and think of it as pilgrim notes. Think about it as pilgrim notes. It's not in the sacred writing. It's not a tradition. Pure pilgrim notes. Abdul Baha, in a point of time when he was in Egypt for 3 years. He was communicating with friends in Turkey and in Europe. And of course, when Abdul Baha writes something, let me stop here for a second and say there's a relationship between the content and the context. When he addressed the friends in Turkey, this is for the whole world. When he addressed the friends in Egypt, it's actually for the whole world. But the question came from Egypt. The question came from Turkey. He said, and this is, you will love this, in a point of time in the future, the people will be seeing each other while they are in different places. Pilgrim notes. Here comes Zoom. Here comes, I don't know, Google Meet. Here comes, I don't know what. 100 years ago, 110 years ago, when he was in Egypt. Just pilgrim notes I figured to share with you. I thought it's really beautiful. When we don't have this lamps of guidance, we get lost. We get lost. We need to adhere to this lamp of guidance. On an individual level, the religion makes you better, and you can read this. On social level, it makes you better. But the purity of the teaching, it has to remain. We cannot add cultural things and we make it part of the faith. We cannot say, my priest said, and now Jesus said. We cannot say that the clergy said, this means the Prophet Muhammad said. The purity of the teachings for every religion, it has to remain. Today, if you would look at the rear view mirror, it's hard to separate the essence of the Old Testament, the words of Moses, whether it's embedded there or not, the stories of Moses, it's hard to separate it from fiction. The Bible, 200 pages, 100 pages, 7, 8 pages in the words of the Lord Jesus Christ, it's hard to separate the other ones from what Jesus Christ said. It's hard. Islam is the same. It's hard to separate the 6,300 verses of the Quran from all what's added into the traditions and explanation. You have to maintain the purity of the teachings. Now, Baha'u'llah's teaching came and he said, in order to deal particularly, this is focused on the issue in hand, which is the fight and strife among religions. This is really the main focus. And here comes also the answer to your question, John, that I told you, don't let me forget it. Baha'u'llah said, there is no divisions based on the personal interpretation and understanding of the religious traditions. We have institutions, we have divine figures, we have the Bab, Baha'u'llah, this is the core of the faith. We had the honor, we have the privilege, we have the bounty of Abdul Baha and Shawi Effendi to interpret the writings for us. It is not personal. This is it. Now, everything I say, I will tell you, John, this is my understanding. Jen, this is my current understanding, because my understanding will change. The more I apply myself, the more I read, the more I pray, the more I meditate, the more I study the writings, the more I act, the 4 things that the writing told us about it, pray, meditate, study, and act. The more I do this, my understanding will change. Mature. This is what I call progressive understanding. So the progressive revelation is the lamps of guidance. My thinking has to catch up with them. So Baha'u'llah said, Your personal interpretation cannot be the cause of deviation. So I cannot go and tell you, Baha'u'llah said such and such in the Aqdas. This is what it means. Any other interpretation is wrong. Also, he said, when this happens, when I share with you my point of view, and you share with me your point of view, I am saying a little bit to the right, you are saying a little bit to the left. We should not have disagreement. I will respect your opinion. You respect my opinion. Thank you. We don't have to fight. We don't have to do a holy war, whether online or hate text or MDs for whatever it is. Baha'u'llah told us we need to accept all the views and the doctrines concerning the station of the messengers of God. What does it mean here? I cannot tell you, I am a Muslim, my guy is better than your guy because you are a Jew. Baha'u'llah said, all of the prophets came from the same source. All of the prophets came from God, and there is just one God. In English, we call him God. In Arabic, we call him Allah. In Turkish, we call him actually Allah also. But it changes just because of a language. Baha'u'llah said, there is no such thing like slavery, abolition of slavery. So the wars which happen in Africa to support the colonization, to get slaves, to build the empires, no slavery, clearly. And Baha'u'llah plotted out the holy wars, clearly. So this particular five principle, very particular, focused on the issue to deal with the religion strife. No fighting about interpretation. We respect each other's opinion. There is all the manifestations, all the prophets are from the same source. No slavery, no holy wars, no carrying arms for us to fight. This is what we have. What are the next steps in your opinion? What are your questions?
May I say my opinion?
Yes. Oh,
Thank you.
Nusrat. Thank you, Nusrat.
Yes, thank you. You said exactly what I want to say. Baha'u'llah tells us that at the past, people were not mature, first of all. They didn't have correct communication. They couldn't read and write. So the rabbi and mullahs and ministers were needed, if they were doing their work rightly, to read and understand and bring to them what they needed. Of course, some of them didn't do it. And that was the period that humanity needed to grow up and understand. Then Baha'u'llah comes, says, and with the writings sealed and signed of the Bab and Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha, they didn't have it. As we said, none of the books really was written by Moses, Zoroaster, Muhammad, or Jesus. So it was mixed and people didn't know. Another psychology and getting into society is that we have to agree with them somehow to be able to give our little food to them also. So when they accepted the culture, because they wanted, beside the culture that they were having, give them a little bit vitamins. And I appreciate that. I'm a chaplain. I saw this 2 days ago, last week. This gentleman says, because I'm wearing the shirt with signs of all 7, 8 religions, and said, if you agree with that, you have no right to carry the Bible. Seriously, a patient is telling me. Seriously, a patient told me, the God is only in my church, not in the hospital, but I need prayers. So these are the things. People are not guilty. People were on those periods. And we really, if we accept and respect them, their condition, how they lived, what they received, we have to accept them in order to be able to give them, we give them also a little bit about the Baha'i faith. We don't give them all. We cannot tell them you are wrong. Your religion grew in wrong way. We have to agree with the society and what they have gone through to be what they are now. And we have to go with live willingly, lovingly, accepting them, telling them we accept all religions, as you repeatedly said that, and Baha'u'llah has said, and say, now this is, maybe suits the time more for society, for science, for oneness, for unity. We don't kill other races. We don't kill other sexes. It is one. When Moses talked about humanity, he said in the first chapter, says God created man, means really humanity. And he says 6 days. But that is what I tell them, means humanity is one. It was not humanity for different cultures or different countries or different times. There is only one humanity. I really enjoyed and learned, but I want to say, and at the end, you come to exactly to what is great. I don't want any one of us to learn. It's my own way of saying. Tell any followers of other religions, your religion went wrong way, you grew up in bad way, they were killing, it was always so. And Baha'u'llah says the nature of man is that. This is why we need the spiritual teachings to a little bit moderate this or make it, better soul or better behavior, accepting and respecting. I don't know. That's what I say.
Thank you, Nusrat.
May
Yes.
I just to follow up on Nusrat's input, which I appreciate really very much, right on point. This is brings in my mind to how Abdul Baha put the principles of the Baha'i faith, and the one that is really, I think, important in all our lives, as whatever religion we belong to, and if we don't have a religion, that's also, is the independent investigation of truth. This is where you can no longer say, oh, my rabbi said this, or my Ayatollah said this, or this and that, is that we do our own independent investigation of truth, which means reading for ourselves and trying to understand and see what we need to do. In preparing for this, it came to all of a sudden and dawned on me that in the Baha'i faith, we call it the Baha'i faith. It's the cause of God. It's very rare when we, both in the original language of the writings, which is Persian and Arabic, and in the English, as the Guardian has used it, and followed by him, all of us, is the word religion. And I started looking at the origin of the word religion. And like many, Latin is the mother of it. It comes from Latin. And in Latin, the word religion means to tie and bind together. So then I thought, okay, then this is why, I have my family and my extended family on my mom's side, which are Muslims. I have a couple of aunts who became communists. And I thought one of them went to prison in Iran because of the activities that she did for spreading communism through the teachings of Mao. And her religion was communism. Her holy book was the Red Book. And I thought that this is why probably getting the younger generation who do not believe any longer in the existence of one God and question it and question the will of God, if he has goodwill for humanity, why all of this is happening, that they are also following their own religion, which doesn't have per se a prophet from God. Does that make sense? And then how do we guide this younger generation, or offer them, as Nusrat said, into the independent investigation of truth and finding the light of the teachings of Baha'u'llah on their own? It's just something I'm thinking and putting out there, because as I'm getting older and passing the baton to the younger generation, how do we approach the young generation and their basically not believing in that there is a God who his light guides us through all the centuries before us? Just a question. If anybody has an answer, how do you approach the young generation?
So Azada, thank you. It's 9:30, and this is I have to turn it over to John and Serene very quickly to try to answer your question that she put for everyone. Sometimes we need to help, and you are very good at this, Serene. I look at you and I learn many things from you. But sometimes we need to point them back again to the book. We point them back again to the Sermon on Mount, that Jesus Christ said. We don't have to tell them about the future. We can tell them about the past and see how it goes. Maybe it will work. If not, then it's their spiritual journey. John, is back to you. Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate it greatly. This was a really stimulating discussion. Definitely, I feel one who's watching this thinking on the subject that we're, again, discussing today and hopefully continuing very soon. This subject is something that can really start conversations in homes, in communities around the world. And it's a real subject that people are discussing right now, or they don't know how to discuss and they want to. Well, here we are. So we really thank you for opening up the channel for doing this and really helping us contribute to these social discourses that are really in need of being had, and elevating our conversations to find out how can we, especially with those around the world who do believe in their religious beliefs, they do acknowledge the existence of God and that they need to listen to a message that comes from God. It's extremely important to also talk about this with our friends who believe in God, that they are trying to figure out why is it that there are these criticisms that are really attacking my faith. And this discussion isn't about that. It's about how can we understand our own misconceptions about our own faith, which is true, and really splitting away our ideas that are not really a part of our faith, though we may have thought our whole lives they were. So it's very important, and we look forward to having you both of you, Mr. Nabil and Mr. Azadeh, to join us again. We really thank you. And for all of you joining us, again, we will be having our guests coming on very shortly again. Please stay tuned on clearwaterbaha'is.org, www.clearwaterbaha'is.org. We also have this recording being posted online. Please be patient, and you'll see on YouTube and on Facebook, the Baha'i Center for Clearwater, that it's going to be there. Just look for it, and we thank you again for your patience.
Thank you for having us. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Pleasure.